Okay.
That device is gonna kill you.
Dad?
Uh-huh.
Where's your phone?
Over here.
Give it.
I'm just setting the shot.
Baby, you're cooked.
Hello, how's it going? How have you been? It's been a minute, huh? So, yeah, if you're one of my, at the time, let's see. So if you're one of my almighty, powerful, at the time of the making of this video, 12 subscribers, you might be wondering why last year I didn't do my typical trilogy of videos going over my favorite anime stuff from the year. And the short answer is because I didn't feel like it. So yeah, basically I kind of just felt like diminishing returns when it came to those videos. Just like not enough personal satisfaction in proportion to the amount of work I put into the editing, which wasn't that much to be clear, but it still took like upwards of about a week for each video. So yeah, I kept putting it off until I was just like, I think I'm just not gonna do it again. That being said though, talking about things that I watch, things that I like, is still something I want to do, and one of the main purposes that I'm trying to make videos in the first place. So I'm just gonna do it in a different way now. So basically the idea for this video, I got inspired by a lot of other creators that have done similar things. Like, this is not in any way an original idea. The thing that inspired me to make this video was Super Eye Patch Wolf made a video. He put out a video on his second channel talking about all the movies he watched last year, and it's nothing new for him. Every few months he'll do his like favorite things of whatever video, and I've always liked those quite a bit. So I kind of wanted to like steal that idea a little bit and make it my own, you know? So basically today I'm gonna talk about every piece of media that I watched / read / whatever in the calendar in the calendar year 2024. This video is basically gonna be split into two sections. In the latter half of the video, the second section, I'm gonna dedicate it entirely to YouTube and anime because I consume those two things a lot more than everything else. And the first section is going to be everything else. The way it's going to work, I'm basically going to go through different categories of media consumed and just quickly go over everything of that category that I consumed last year and just give my quick thoughts, a little mini review, if you will. And for this section, it's going to be pretty much entirely out of order. It's kind of more or less, well, it's following the order of this document that I have here, which is just a list of things, which is kind of more or less the order that I watched them in as the year was going along, but it's not like super strict. The one thing is that I will save my favorite thing in each category at the end. I'm going to talk about that at the end. And that's going to be the first section. For the second section, I'm not going to talk about everything because, again, I watch a lot more YouTube and anime than I do everything else, so for the second section, I'm just gonna go over my top 10 for those categories. Let's not stall any longer, because this video is probably gonna be pretty long, so let's just get right into it. So this is everything I watched / read / whatever in the year 2024, part 1, everything else. So I'm kind of gonna be going from the categories that have the least in them to the ones that have the most. And so we're gonna start off with video games, which for last year I only have one thing in this category. So with games, despite of how I might look and my general vibe, I'm not a huge gamer. What I mean by that is that I'm pretty casual about it. I actually really care about gaming as an art form, or video games as an art form.
Not really! I didn't know you didn't play any games!
But at the same time, I don't play super often. Like, I save it for things that really spark my interest. What I'm trying to say is that I don't play a lot of games. And it's also kind of hard for me to quantify what to put in this list because, like, gaming, like completing a game takes a lot more time than any of these other types of media. Like, consider a film. A film is like 2 hours, 3 hours at most usually. That's like nothing for a video game. That's like the length of a video game demo. So that being considered, whenever I make these kinds of videos, don't expect a lot in this category. So for last year, the only thing that I have in this category is the video game The Messenger. The Messenger is a platformer which came out in 2018, and it goes for the retro sort of pixel art style from retro games, which is an aesthetic that I've always really loved, and that's kind of one of the things that attracted me to this game. And I played a little bit of it. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm not super far along into it. I kind of got stuck in like a boss fight kinda, so I kind of let off of it for a while, but I know they do some interesting things with some like aesthetic changes later on in the game, and I'm excited to get to that. But yeah, that's it. Moving on, we got books. Actual books with text and words and no pictures usually. I know, crazy. So it had been a long time since I actually read a book, and I was really excited to get back into it last year, and I did. I read a couple books and I was really happy with that. So let's get into it. First off, first book that I read last year is High School DxD Volume 1, Diablos of the Old School Building. So yeah, this book was not very good. So not to disparage High School DxD, because I am a fan. I do like the show, and that's the reason why I checked this out in the first place. Because the source material for High School DxD is a light novel. It originally came out as a light novel, and I'm not gonna get into explaining the nuances of what a light novel is and how it's different from a regular novel. All you gotta know is that it's a book with words on it, and I read it. And yeah, this was not like a super fun read, not because like the story is boring necessarily, but just it's written in a really plain way that's like not super interesting to read. And a lot of light novels that I've read have this problem too. Probably a consequence of them being written really fast, of them having a really fast turnout, which is kind of in the nature for them. But yeah, I did push myself to finish this, because I mean, it's a tiny book. It's like, I don't think it's even like 200 pages, but yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be continuing this. I would like to keep consuming the story of High School DxD, because it is a series that I care about, and I don't think we're gonna get any more of the anime. Last season we got was like 2018, so I might check out the manga, but who knows, we'll see. Far more importantly than that though, last year I read Dune. That's right, I am officially a Dune head now. Since the movies came out, I became a huge fan of the franchise. I finally got around to reading the first book, and it was great. It was fantastic. I loved it. It was really fun. It really wasn't as hard of a read as a lot of people like to pretend that this book is. It was really pretty straightforward, but super fun. There's a lot of details in the book that are like kind of left out of the movie, and I understand why they did this, you know, like you gotta sacrifice some things in adaptation, but there's a lot of details that are super interesting and add a lot to the world. So if you like the movies, definitely recommend checking out the books. I do plan on reading the rest of the series at some point, sometime soon. Next up we got another light novel that I read, and that is Nisei Monogatari Part 2, Fairy Tail Part 2. I'm a huge fan of the Monogatari series, one of my favorite anime. So when they finally started publishing the novels in English, well, I started reading them, and they're pretty great. I know that Nisio Isin's writing style is super based on like meta humor, meta commentary, wordplay, and just stuff that is really hard to translate. But I think the people that work on this translation do a really great job, and it's a really fun read. This one in specific was cool because it really focuses on the character of Tsukihi, the protagonist's little sister, who I think is one of the most underrated and underappreciated characters in the series. I might make a video about that someday, but yeah, this was really fun. And finally, the last book I want to talk about, what I think was my favorite book that I read last year. This one came as a total surprise to me. It's this one right here, Leviathan Wakes, first book of The Expanse, which is a sci-fi series. This was an awesome read. Just a sci-fi series about humanity expanding outward into the stars, into the solar system. Just incredible world building here, super engaging. Really cool concepts, like just all the fucking time, just these awesome sci-fi concepts. And I ended up getting way more attached to the characters than I thought I would too. I think it has really good characters, so It's kind of surprised me. Knew nothing about this prior to reading it, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So definitely very excited to check out more of the books in the series, which I also plan. Okay, so the camera caught off like right at the very end of what I was saying. All I was trying to say was that this was a really good book. So let's just move on now. Let's move on to a category with more to talk about, and that is TV shows, series, excluding anime, obviously, because that's its own category. So yeah, let's talk about it. Last year, I got the second half of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, a series on Disney Plus, adapting the classic novels, which I was a huge fan of when I was younger, as a young teen, a young boy, if you will. And you know, as someone who never liked the movie, who got pretty infuriated by the movie, it was really nice seeing them give it another shot and be more accurate to the source material this time. I was kind of surprised to learn that a lot of people really didn't like this adaptation. And like, I mean, I guess I could see reasons why. Like, it's definitely a little more plain looking. But I don't know, I thought it was pretty fun. It was fun to revisit the story and revisit these characters that I remember from the books. So yeah, I do think they're gonna make more seasons, and I will check them out. I think this was pretty decent. And again, this is only the latter half of the show, because the first half came out in 2023. They kind of broke it up into two parts, which, you know, sometimes some series do that. It's becoming pretty common, but you know, it's whatever. Next one, and this might shock you, but Avatar, beloved, classic animated series, aired on Nickelodeon, I believe. So this is a series that I checked out several times when I was a kid. I would catch it when it was airing on TV, but I never actually went back and watched the whole thing from start to finish. I'd always intended to, but I never done it until I did it with my friends, and I started in 2023, and then last year we got around to watching Book 3, the final season, Book 3 Fire, and it was fire. But yeah, like, I mean, everybody knows this by this point, but Avatar is amazing. It's a classic for a reason. Book 3 goes insanely hard. It is so freaking good. I was expecting nothing less. I was completely satisfied by it. It's great. If you haven't watched Avatar in a long time or at all, definitely give it a shot. It starts out feeling a lot like a kids show in the first season, and if that's not your speed, I understand that, but if you push past it, you'll get some genuinely great storytelling. Next up, something a lot more depressing. We got Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. It's a little docu-series that I watched about some very disturbing things about kids television, kids actors being abused, you know, Dan Schneider and all of that. Yeah, this was definitely a hard watch, but I definitely feel like it's an important story to tell, like a cautionary tale even, if you will. Not much more to say about it. Viewer discretion advised, I guess. If this is like a really sensitive topic for you, then definitely don't check it out, but I'd say it's worth watching. Another show that kind of sort of got broken up, and I only watched the latter half of it last year, was season 2 of Invincible. Another super popular animated series. It's on Prime Video, adapting the comic book of the same name, Invincible. Just one of those sort of darker takes on superhero stories. Although I would say Invincible is definitely not as like dark and cynical as something like The Boys, for example. Which, speaking of, I did start watching season 4 last year, but didn't get around to finishing it. I don't know, I didn't feel super strongly about it, but moving on from that, Invincible, I mean, Invincible is pretty great. I don't know what else to tell you. It's got really fun characters, the action is insane, the twists are so shocking. Season 2, I felt didn't quite live up to like some of the most shocking moments in season 1, but it was still fun, and I'm a good fan of the series and very excited to see where it goes from here. Another show I watched last year was season 3 of The Bear. The Bear is a series that I really liked when it first came out. Well, I didn't check it out when it first came out, but a little later, around the time when season 2 came out, and I absolutely fell in love with it. There's definitely a character study. It's all about the characters, the people who work in this restaurant, and them sort of like trying to make this mess work. And it's super engaging. You really want to see what happens to them, like what goes wrong. You want to see them succeed because because all the people in this show are like such kind of like messes, you know, like they're all kind of fuck ups in one way or another. And yeah, that's kind of what I would say is the appeal of The Bears, just seeing this group of people sort of try to get it together and try their best. Now season 3 received some criticism because it felt like the story made very little progression, and I get that, you know, and even as someone who enjoyed season 3 overall, I will admit that it didn't have the same sort of spark that the first 2 seasons did, but there's still some really great stuff in here, like the episode with Tina of how she started working at the restaurant was probably my favorite. I also really liked the episode with Jamie Lee Curtis and Carmi's sister giving birth. I also thought really good. But yeah, overall the season was a lot slower. It felt like it didn't get much progression. I definitely want to see where the story goes from here because season 3 ended on a super cliffhanger. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. Another series that I checked out last year was The Legend of Vox Machina. This is another animated series from Prime Video. This is based on the famous D&D group Critical Role on one of their campaigns. It's basically like an animated adaptation of one of their Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. So I got urged to watch this show because my friends were watching it before me, and season 3 of Vox Machina released last year. So I went back, checked the whole thing out. It was really fun. Definitely very sort of standard run-of-the-mill fantasy, definitely very D&D-like. I mean, it is based on a D&D campaign after all. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought the characters were super likable. I kind of ended up by the end liking all the characters, different aspects of them. Even characters which I thought were kind of like whatever at the beginning, I ended up really liking by the end. So yeah, this was a really fun watch. Definitely very nerdy stuff over here. Like, even though I think the characters are the strongest point here, it's not like you can go past the skin of a D&D fantasy campaign that much. So yeah, definitely very hardcore nerd type stuff here, but it was fun. It was fun. I do recommend it if you're into D&D or fantasy in general. Next one is a show which kind of completely caught me by surprise, and I ended up watching and really liking it, and that is Interview with the Vampire. I watched both the seasons, parts 1 and 2, last year, and at first it was kind of a joke to me, I'm not gonna lie, because my girlfriend at the time was seeing a lot of edits about it and seeing scenes, and I thought it looked kind of whatever. We ended up checking out the whole thing, and I was surprised by how good I actually thought it was. It's a really interesting exploration of like memory, trauma, some interesting themes there, something that's definitely worth making a video about. But yeah, this was one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. And I know there's a 3rd season coming out later this year, I think. And which is interesting because between the 1st and 2nd seasons, they completely wrap up the story. So from what I understand, this 3rd season is sort of going to be retelling things from a different character's perspective, which is definitely interesting. But yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Nigga, it's about to stop being a rock star. You see, don't ad-lib this shit. Don't, Lestat.
Anyway, moving on. I finally checked out a show which I've been meaning to check out for a long time, but I finally did last year, and that is Arcane. Just a critical darling show. Everybody freaking loves Arcane, and I finally checked it out, and I understand. I finally understand. This was a great show. The animation style, the aesthetic of it is awesome, unique. Like, in years to come, the impact of the Spider-Verse movies on just animation will have to be studied, but I think this is an example of that, of sort of taking inspiration from that and making it its own. Anyway, outside of the animation style, just a general like sort of steampunk adjacent aesthetic of the show I found super cool. And the characters too. I mean, the characters I mean, most of the characters are really interesting. They have story arcs that go to really interesting places to see how they develop. Especially in the second season, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because I didn't actually watch the second season until earlier this year, so I'm strictly talking about the first season here. But yeah, I finally watched Arcane. I get it. It's good. But that being said, let's finally get to the last thing in here, and my favorite TV show, my actual favorite TV show that I watched last year, and that is Shogun, of course. Everybody's favorite TV show from 2024, I feel like, but that's with good reason, because the show was phenomenal. Like, the filming, the vibes it gives are awesome, the sort of brutality of the setting and of the story make it really captivating. And also seeing things from the perspective of this kind of like fish out of water scenario a little bit with the protagonist who is an Englishman stranded in feudal Japan. I also want to say that feudal Japan in general is a setting that I typically really enjoy. Like, usually setting things in feudal Japan is will earn you positive points in my field. Is that a very weak thing of me to say? Maybe, but I feel this way. So yeah, Shogun is definitely pretty dark. It can get pretty brutal at times, but it was a fascinating story, and I definitely recommend it. I heard they're making a second season, which I don't know how I feel about that, because this was supposed to be just one season originally. We'll see how it goes. I'm not opposed to checking it out, but I think that one season is all we needed with this story. Alright, we got 2 categories left to go, and these are the big ones. I got a lot to cover in these, so this is gonna take a minute. I'm gonna try to speed things up a little bit, but yeah, next up we got films. And you can say that in past few years I've been becoming something of a cinephile myself. But yeah, which is to say I watched a lot of movies last year, so let's just quickly go through them. Watched The Nice Guys. Really funny, really fun. The dynamic between Ryan Gosling and who was the other guy? Yeah, the dynamic between Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe is just great. Just like a great sort of like buddy cop comedy. The humor in this really landed with me. I thought it did get a little... I did think the last time was a little whatever, but all in all, it was a really fun one. We also got Aquaman. Aquaman with Jason Momoa. Now, this is one of those movies that just looks like superhero, like slop trash, but believe me when I tell you that this movie is like really fun. And it's all about the action scenes. I forget who directed this movie, I don't feel like looking it up right now, but he did an amazing job with the action scenes, with the special effects. Everything just feeds into this manic energy that you just don't get that often from superhero movies, especially nowadays. I thought this was an absolute blast to watch, and it's even got me wanting to check out the sequel, which, I mean, I never thought I would say. But yeah, Aquaman is actually a really fun movie. We got American Fiction, definitely one of my favorite ones that I watched last year, about the struggles of being a black writer, black artist in the current world that we live in. It's not something that I can personally talk a lot about, but I thought that the way this movie handled it was really interesting, really nuanced, more so than other pieces of media I've seen. Again, I'm not an expert on the topic. And this was one of my favorites that I watched last year, and I recommend it a lot, especially because I think it's a movie that's very agreeable and that a lot of people will like. Like this is a movie that says important things, but is also in a very friendly package, I would put it. We got Cindy La Regia. This is a Mexican comedy movie that I watched with my family while I was visiting. I was really not expecting much. I was actually kind of surprised at how actually funny it was. Like, I thought the comedy really landed with me. Got not much else to say. It was just like a fun comedy romantic movie. If you're not Mexican, the humor might not land as well with you, but I still thought it was fun. Another absolute banger that I watched last year was Monkey Man, Dev Patel's directorial debut, produced by Jordan Peele, which, God bless him, man, because if it weren't for him, this would not have gotten a theatric release. And it deserved it. This movie was such a kick-ass action movie, inspired by, of course, John Wick, which, like, increasingly seems to be the most important action movie of the last, like, 10 years or so, but also equally inspired by Indian culture and the setting, and I thought the mix was great. Dev Patel does an incredible job as a protagonist. It has awesome action scenes, and just the vibe, the overall atmosphere of it was so good. Anyway, I really like this one. You got another really fun one, Triangle of Sadness. Another one of those eat the rich core movies, I guess. Another parody of hyper-capitalist societies, of billionaires, super rich people. This is one of the better ones, for sure. It has a lot of humor, which lands really well, even when it's even when it goes to like slightly more fucked up places. It still keeps it breezy, comedic. The scene, the legendary scene where everybody gets seasick on the boat is one of the grossest and yet funniest and most iconic scenes I've seen recently. Really memorable stuff. And it's also a really unpredictable movie. Like, I really couldn't predict where this movie went. So yeah, that one's also really good. Another more underrated one I watched is Problemista, which is the directorial debut of Julio Torres, who I think is mainly a comedian. He also plays the main character, sort of like a Monkey Man type situation, I guess. There's a film that I thought was pretty underrated. Didn't see a lot of people talking about it, but I really liked it. I really liked how it's in a really common, familiar setting and tackles very common modern day issues like looking for a job, dealing with visas and stuff like that, but it also adds just a tiny touch of a fantasy, of sort of surreality to it that just makes it that much more interesting. I thought this was a really underrated watch. Also watched Mysterious Skins, a 2004 movie starring a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This was a hard watch. In Super Wolf's video about his favorite movies of 2024 that he talked about, he describes the movies as day ruiners. This is definitely that. Like, it's one of those movies that I think it's important to watch, but I wouldn't watch again. Because this movie is mainly about sexual abuse of children, so yeah, it was a pretty hard watch. Great movie. Wouldn't watch it again. We also got Inside Out 2, which I also watched in theaters, which was kind of a spontaneous thing. I wasn't really planning on doing it, but ended up doing it. It was fun, you know, it was fine. I never watched the original Inside Out, but having just watched the second one, I didn't really feel like I needed that previous context. It was pretty decent. I was kind of shocked that it became the highest grossing animated movie of all time at that point, because it was like, really? This? Like, I don't know, like, because this is fine, it wasn't bad, but it's just like, this is really what broke that record? Damn. But anyway, yeah, it was fine. It was like a decent family movie. I don't know, don't got much else to say about it. Another movie aimed at children, another animated family movie, which I thought was a lot more interesting, actually, is Sirocco and the Kingdom of Winds, a French movie that I got to catch in theaters. And this one was so cool. I just loved it. The art style is so unique and it's so whimsical. It really does have that slight touch of like Ghibli influence, but it also has its own thing going on. It's got this very like storybook, children's storybook sort of thing, and it's also quite abstract, and I like that quite a bit. It adds to this sort of like childlike, dreamy atmosphere. This one was really fun, and I really recommend it. I also watched the Ridley Scott classic Alien for the first time in my whole life last year. This one was also pretty great. I know that for 1979 this movie was probably terrifying. I personally didn't find it that scary, probably because it's been like 40 years since it came out. But I did love it. I loved it. I love the aesthetic of it, the hard sci-fi, this sort of like run-down spaceship, the like sort of eldritch monstrosity they come across on this planet. Everything about it was so cool. I enjoyed this movie so much. Definitely want to check out more of the Aliens movies. I also watched Deadpool and Wolverine, you know, being the MCU head that I am, unfortunately. And now, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I would even say I liked it, but it did make me realize, it did make me start coming to terms how much Marvel has lost its mojo since Endgame. And I mean, because for all the Infinity Saga films, I was a pretty big defender, and I'm still a pretty big fan of them. I think they're genuinely great, all taken together. But since that point, the MCU has been just stumbling and fumbling, and this movie was pretty decent, okay? It was pretty funny. I mean, I don't think it was as funny as the first two Deadpool movies, but it was alright, you know, and I think Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman had a pretty okay dynamic, but at the same time, it felt so just cynical. I don't know, like, It was funny, don't get me wrong, but I was also put off by how cynical it felt in a lot of parts and a lot of its meta commentary that it was trying to do. Or I shouldn't even say meta commentary, it's more like meta humor, just fourth wall jokes that it was trying to do. So yeah, I don't know if the Deadpool films, the original ones, felt this way too, because it's been a minute since I watched them. But yeah, this one was decent, I enjoyed it, but I was also a little put off by it at the same time. Last year, me and my roommate decided to rewatch all of the Star Wars films from the very beginning, and that included watching the sequel trilogy, episodes 7 through 9, which I had never watched previously. And so I watched them, all three of them, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, and they were not great. Like, I really wanted them to be better than what people said they were, but they weren't. They felt very sort of pandering, they felt very, like, meandering, like it kind of, like a lot of the time they kind of didn't really know what they were doing or where they were going. I felt that out of the three of these, Last Jedi was the one I enjoyed the most, but it also felt like that movie was trying to hinge on things that were supposed to be set up in Force Awakens, which weren't. So yeah, the whole thing just kind of falls apart. There's some cool sequences here and there, there's cool ideas, there's performances that I like, but all in all, it's just, this really just kind of just fell apart, and it felt so inferior to the previous Star Wars movies, including the prequel trilogies, which after rewatching them, I am going to defend. I think they were pretty decent, especially Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, these three movies were not that good. I'm glad I finally got around to watching them, but they're not great. Another movie that I watched, which is good though, The Zone of Interest. It's funny that I'm speaking about it with such excitement because I'm just kind of on a roll right now and I'm yapping, but that was another pretty hard watch. Zone of Interest is definitely another day ruiner because it's about the Holocaust. Yeah, the whole premise of the movie is about this family of German people which move like literally right next to Auschwitz, and the whole point of the movie is about the sort of the normalization of violence perpetrated against this group of people. It really made me think of this one phrase which was coined by Sylvia Plath, I believe, which I haven't really read her work. I know about this because my dad really likes her, but the banality of evil, the normalization of evil, and that's kind of what this movie is all about, right? So it was great, but it was also another hard watch, another day ruiner for sure. The camera cut off again. I think I was in the middle of saying something, but yeah, basically Megalopolis was a hot mess, but I'm not gonna lie, it was a really fun watch. I'm really excited to watch it again, inebriated preferably, and yeah, I mean, this is a movie that most people won't enjoy. I wouldn't really call it a good movie. I did think it was super fun, and I'm excited to watch it again. We got a movie that I've been meaning to watch for a really long time, and I finally got a chance to watch because it was airing in theaters, and that is The Fall by Tarsem. This was a movie that I've been meaning to watch because I've seen scenes from it. I know that aesthetically it's exceptionally beautiful, and I finally watched it, and it was an incredible movie. Like, aesthetically, like some of the coolest fucking shots I've ever seen in my life, and it also had that same thing. It's got like sort of dream logic. It's sort of like a fairy tale. It's like, well, the story is basically this guy telling this little girl this whole story that he's making up on the go, and it really nails that feeling down. This story was also like a lot darker than I thought it'd be. It went to some places where I was like, Jesus Christ, I did not see that coming. Yeah, this was a fantastic film. Would recommend. I loved it. We got The Wild Robot from DreamWorks, another phenomenal animated kids movie which touches on themes of motherhood, and it touches on them in a really like emotionally powerful and impactful way. It's also got that sort of like Spider-Verse type animation, which is great. I mean, this movie looks fantastic. And yeah, this out of the more kids oriented, family friendly movies I watched last year, I would probably say this was the best one, like hands down. This was a great movie. I watched a Indian movie called Gangubai Kathiawadi, which speaks about this historical figure in India, which again, I don't know much about the topic, but it's about a woman who sort of comes to run a brothel in India, and through that ends up becoming a really sort of heroic and important figure in her neighborhood, in her part of the city, and who ends up sort of campaigning for the protection of that part of the city. And I thought it was really cool. It's kind of a musical, as a lot of Indian movies tend to be. Kinda, sorta. I'm not a huge fan of musicals, but I thought this movie did it really well. And yeah, definitely some feminist themes in there. I don't think they tackle them in the deepest way possible or the most nuanced way possible, but it was nice to see regardless. This was another good one. Another one I saw, which was pretty harsh, was The Florida Project. And just a movie about like sort of kids growing up in poverty, especially in America, specifically talking. And this movie was hard because it really like nails down that feeling of just like being a kid and running around and playing with other kids, but at the same time it's got this like harsh topics of just like trying to deal with poverty and desperation and trying to do whatever it takes to just make it through in life. The ending sequence, it has a pretty open-ended ending, but I really like the ending sequence. It's just like, just really drives home those like topics of just like wanting to escape from all the problems, especially from the perspective of a kid going through all this. So yeah, this was another hard watch, but definitely recommend. Look back! Look back! Fujimoto did it again! So yeah, this was a anime movie based on the one-shot manga by D1 Tatsuki Fujimoto, author of beloved shonen series Chainsaw Man. And this was such a gut punch. It's really short. The movie's less than an hour long, and it was one of the hardest emotional gut punches that I watched last year. Like, the animation is absolutely gorgeous. It takes Fujimoto's style and conveys it in a super interesting way, gives it its own personality. Absolutely gorgeous film to look at, and God, it's so sad. Like, the film is so sad, but it's also so optimistic in a weird way, and it's all about like art making and what it does to you as a person and why it's so important in a way. Yeah, I love this movie. Just amazing movie. If it was up to me, this would have won Best Animated Picture at the Oscars, but I'm not the Oscars and they're never right. So yeah, anyway. Animated film I watched is Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim, an animated Lord of the Rings sequel. It was fine. The animation was really nice, definitely very Ghibli.
You were incorrect.
Oh, sorry. Prequel. I said sequel. I meant to say prequel. I meant to say prequel. Yeah, this one was fine. The animation was really nice.
Or at least I'm sure.
And the animation was really nice, very Ghibli inspired, but other than that, it was kind of whatever, to be honest. This may be a sin to say, but I'm not like the biggest Lord of the Rings guy. Like, I only watched the movies for the first time like pretty recently, and like I understand its historical importance and appreciate it for that, but I'm not a diehard for Lord of the Rings like I am for other things. But anyway, this one was okay. This one was kind of whatever. Okay, we're down to the last two. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was so fucking good for no reason. Like, okay, I was already really excited to watch this because the first Sonic movie was kind of like whatever, you know. I checked it out. It was, yeah, it was good, but you know, nothing amazing. And then the second movie surprised me by how much it improved on it, so I was very excited to see this one, and they did it again! This movie is so packed with so much fun action, so many fun character moments. It really sticks to that, like, to what I think is the spirit of Sonic as a character. Like, I don't think it deviates from that at all. And those fight scenes towards the end of the movie are also spectacular. Like, they're so well done. Some of the best action scenes I saw last year. And finally, well, almost finally, we got Red One. Really shitty Christmas, I guess you could call it, movie that came out in September. But yeah, this one was bad. This one was not good, and I didn't even like fully watch it. Like, I missed the last like 30 minutes of it, but I wanted to include it here anyway because I wanted to shit on it. This movie sucked. It's just like pure slop. And the fact that this movie cost as much money as it did to create and just roped in these talents like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, freaking J.K. Simmons is in this, and this movie is just so bad. It's just pure slop. This movie to me kind of represents what's wrong with Hollywood current day. But anyway, all that being said, let's finally get around to talking about what was actually my favorite movie that I watched last year. And unsurprisingly, it's Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 was astounding. Doom Part 2 was a monumental piece of film, okay? Like, I already really liked the first one when it came out, and this one just felt so fucking grand and epic. I want more movies that are as ambitious as Dune to do what they were doing. Just Denis Villeneuve's sort of brutalist aesthetic approach is perfectly matched by the sort of tone of the movie and the scale. I already really liked Dune Part 1, but with Part 2, these two have become like some of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I kind of knew that this was gonna be my favorite movie of the year as soon as I watched it. Just Paul Atreides' speech, like his speech towards the end of the movie, is a scene that I just cannot get out of my head. Like, what a powerful scene. And also, all props to Timothée Chalamet, because he did an incredible job. Everybody did, but Timothée Chalamet just astounded me with how good of a job he did in this movie. Yeah, like I said, I'm a Dune head now. I'm full on a Dune head. Okay, and finally, to wrap up this first section of the video, we're gonna talk about what I think is the largest section here, the largest category. It's about the same as the film category, but yeah, that is music, and more specifically albums. Look, I love music. It is my passion. I myself am a musician. I listen to music all the time. I think about music constantly. So in order to make cataloging it easier, I basically just counted full albums that I listened to for the first time last year. And even whittling it down that much, there's still a lot here. So let's try to get through these once again as quickly as possible. I start off the year with the album We're Not Here to Be Loved by Fleshwater, released in 2022. This is the debut album from the sort of alt rock, nu metal adjacent project Fleshwater. I really like this album. Like, they just represent that sort of like Deftones-y inspired like 90s aesthetic so well, with a modern twist, of course. Lots of really fun songs on this one. I got to see them live recently, kind of. They were opening for Deftones, and I just caught the like last two songs of their set, but yeah. Next up, we got a pretty weird one by a project called Victory Over the Sun, the album Nowhereer. This is a microtonal black metal album. It's a solo project. I'm forgetting the person's name right now, but this is a solo microtonal black metal project. We're starting off strong, folks. Yeah, this was definitely a weird listen, definitely a harder listen. Just 4 songs, all of them pretty long, but it was pretty cool stuff. I find microtonal music fascinating. It's something that I love to learn about, and used in the metal context, I think is really cool as well. That is a very specific niche of metal that I like to see more of. Also checked out for the first time classic post-hardcore / metalcore album Jane Doe by Converge. This was another great listen. Super aggressive, super energetic. Loved it. The first 2 tracks, Concubine and Fulton Fracture, are just absolutely great, and there's a lot of really good moments in this album. It's a classic for a reason. People say that it's a little overrated. I don't know about all that. I gotta check out their other albums to form my opinion, but I really liked it. We got another more obscure one. It is the experimental hip-hop project Trial of the Golden Witch with Rogue Alien Pet, released last year in 2024. This is a project that I've been following for a long time because it's the project for Trixie, the Golden Witch, who you may remember from back in the day. She used to go by Digibro. That was before she transitioned. She no longer uses that name, but just as a point of reference. She was mainly known as a YouTuber who talked about anime. I always loved her content. I checked out her music, and I like a lot of it. And this project was great. Like, some of her best music that I've heard in a while. There were some songs on here that were stuck in my head for most of the year. I really like Massive Witch Hat, which is a great title too. And oh yeah, All I Do Is Go Ham. Yeah, there were some other good ones in here as well. This was a really good album, lots of catchy ones. It was pretty short too, but yeah, I really glad to see her come out with another project with this much bite to it, I guess. We got a progressive rock / metal band from Atlanta, Seder, with their second album, Totem, which apparently is also their last album. I found out recently that they broke up or went on indefinite hiatus. So yeah, this one was also a fun listen. It's not as good as their first album, Locust, which I'm still to this day obsessed with. I absolutely adore that album. But still, it has some really good songs in it. I liked it a lot more on the second listen than I did on the first one. Yeah, this band is super underrated, super underappreciated. Kind of really bummed that they're not together anymore, but yeah, this is gonna be one of my sort of underdog, underrated darlings for the time to come. Another thing that I was trying to do last year, I was trying to go through the Deer Hunters discography. I didn't fully do that, but I did get to hear Act 3, Life and Death for the first time, their third album, and it was kind of okay. I wasn't too into it, to be honest. I might change my mind if I give it a second listen, but in my mind it didn't quite live up to Acts 1 and 2, which I think both are like amazing albums. So yeah, I definitely do intend to listen to the rest of this little saga that they made, but yeah, Act 3 I thought was just okay, to be honest. Another album that I've seen sort of explode in popularity since it came out, that is Joey Valence and Bray with No Hands, which I believe is their second album. This hip-hop duo, really going for sort of like more 90s/2000s aesthetics, very sort of pop culture influence, constantly referencing like video games, cartoons, stuff like that. It's definitely very goofy, very lighthearted, but the songs they put out are so much fun. They're so catchy. This whole album is great. One of my favorite finds from last year. My favorite song still has to be probably No Hands, the title track. Also Omnitrix is really fun as well. I also got another band that I got into last year, which is the Callous Dow Boys. Another Atlanta sort of mathcore type band. Very chaotic, very all over the place. Kind of reminds me a lot. Well, of course, Dillinger's Escape Plan is probably a huge influence on them, but they also kind of remind me of I Wrestled a Bear Once, if you remember that band. I certainly do. Yeah, anyway, Callous Dow Boys, I heard their album Celebrity Therapist, their second album last year. Thought it was great. They got a new one coming out this year. I'm very excited for that. But yeah, specifically the song Star Baby is one that I have not been able to stop listening to. What a banger. This next one was a recommendation from a friend. It's a project called Mitsubishi Suicide. And I listened to their self-titled album, which seems to be like their first release or their first album or something. As far as I know, this is still pretty underground, but I enjoy this quite a bit. It seems to have more of like an old school like emo / post-hardcore sound to it, as opposed to the more modern sound that you might be used to. And I found it quite intriguing. These songs are definitely kind of weird, but that's kind of what I liked about them. I especially liked the track Marriage of Figaro. That one was a weird one. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Another weird album that I listened to is an album by Midori, a Japanese jazz punk project, which I'm not sure if they're still together, but it's their album Aratamemashite, Hajimemashite, Midori desu. Yeah, this one was crazy. This one was not just super chaotic listen. Just, again, it's a mix of like jazz and punk music, and it's just so chaotic. The vocals are very sort of aggressive, very in your face. Guitar work that's also all over the place, flying over just crazy piano and like upright bass lines. I found the specific sound and aesthetic of this band so intriguing, so captivating that I had to listen to the album, and it was a really fun listen. Another Japanese one that I heard is the EP World Is Yours by Mass of the Fermenting Dregs. I've always considered this band kind of as YouTube recommended core because it has a really memorable cover, and I saw it on like my recommended bar a lot. This was another great one. This was another really fun, sort of like shoegazy, very sort of like emotional but also energetic Japanese rock, which is exactly what I like. Yeah, I definitely think this EP, at the very least, I haven't checked out their other albums, but this EP definitely lives up to the hype. One of my favorite albums that I heard last year, actually, and not my favorite one, but close to it, is the album Maze Envy by Siberus. Just a pretty new, on-the-scene death metal band incorporating a lot of elements from progressive metal, very symphonic elements, and I thought this album was just so interesting. Especially like what really captivated me was the lyrics and the way they mix with the ambiance of the music itself. I was really captivated by the themes of sort of going into the maze and losing your mind and going into madness. I'm not gonna lie, this is one that I got from Fantano because he talked about it and I thought the album cover was really cool, so I checked it out, but I'm glad I did. He was right, this was a fantastic album. Another death metal one I listened to, I was definitely on a death metal kick last year. The one that I listened to is Manual Manic Procedures by the band 200 Stab Wounds, another band that I had heard of, and I checked out this, which was their most recent album. It was pretty fun, there were some good ones in there. It's definitely not as outstanding as some other death metal stuff I heard last year, but the song Hands of Eternity is a certified banger. I really like that song, and there were some other good ones there as well. I also like just how fucking brutal and gross the album art is. Definitely definitely calls your attention. Another weirder project I checked out, Death Awaits by Blind Equation. This is a cyber grind project. So what it basically is like Nintendo Core, if you know what that means, if I'm not the only one in the world who like that kind of music. Apparently not, because cyber grind is a whole movement that's been going on recently, which is very specifically harkening back to that sound, which makes me very happy. And this was a really fun one, mixing 8-bit chiptune, video gamey elements with sort of harder grindcore, metal aesthetics, vocals, drumming. This was a pretty fun listen. Definitely liked sort of revisiting that vibe, and I'm definitely a fan of the fact that there's a whole scene trying to sort of go back to the sound and pay it. Sorry, the video cut out again. But I was saying I was captivated by this sort of like technological, like sort of cybernetic type themes that I saw in the music, the aesthetics. Combined with just this absolutely like brutal drumming. Like the drumming really called my attention. I thought that song and this album in general has just spectacular drum work. But yeah, so I went ahead, checked out the whole album. It was pretty good. This is definitely one that I feel like I should revisit. The only song I really remember is Automaton Virtual. But I'm definitely glad I checked this one out. This is one of the weirder ones I listened to. Of course, we also had the most recent album from my Aussie boys, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, with Flight B741, their album their obligatory album for the year for 2024. And this album, they're tackling a sort of like very like blues rock, very like bluesy, like sort of like American folk influenced rock style. And to be honest, I wasn't super into it this time. Like, I'm generally a fan of most of what they release, and I think I might owe this one a second listen because first listen that I gave it, I was not super impressed by it, which I don't usually say about their albums, but yeah, I think I might owe this one a re-listen. Another listen that stuck with me last year was Chad Pile, God's Country, which I think is their debut full-length album. And this one was pretty harrowing. I was talking about movies that are day ruiners in the previous category. This is, I think, the like album equivalent of that. Just a brutal, harrowing album about just like a lot of issues that plague America currently: wealth disparity, violence, you know. The song Slaughterhouse is obviously one of my favorites. It's pretty dark, it's pretty intense, without being like just completely, I don't want to say unlistenable, but it's not as hard of a listen as some of the other songs in this album. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Definitely wanting to check out their second album that they put out last year at some point. Yeah, I'm definitely officially a Chad Pile fan after this one. Another pretty interesting one was Mare EP by Mirar, which is a French duo who are doing like this insane like sort of instrumental thal genty type music, and they're just sort of, I just feel like they're taking this genre which has been sort of growing on the internet, influenced by bands such as like Viljarta and Car Bomb, and they're taking it to like such extremes. Like I was so shocked by how heavy this music felt and how like intense and all over the place it was, especially considering that it's instrumental. There's no vocals on this, and it's still just so fucking brutal. So yeah, this one was really fun. This one was really good. Definitely recommend it. It definitely feels into like a peak of a movement in the metal scene, which is still yet to like hit its peak, so to say. What I'm trying to say is that I feel like Mirar is sort of in a way ushering in the next big thing in the metal world, which is something that I'm invested in as a metal fan. Another one, we got Melt Banana, the crazy Japanese experimental band with their most recent album 3+5, released last year. I think it's their first album to come out in a long time. So I want to say like 10 plus years. I thought this one was pretty fun. I heard some people say that it's not as experimental as some of their other stuff, but I still think that the aesthetic that they do on this album was really interesting, and I thought there were some really great moments on it, and some really fun bangers. More death metal. One of the fan favorites, one of the most talked about death metal albums of last year, Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation. This one was also phenomenal. Just an absolutely peak progressive death metal album, incorporating, of course, many other elements of like electronic music, featuring some very interesting guest performances, and structuring the album as like sort of two very long songs which are broken up into smaller sections. All in all, I'm with most of the people here that say that this was a great album, because it was. I really enjoyed it. We got a few more to go through here. We got The New Sound by Jordy Griep, lead singer of the now broken up Black Midi. I am a huge Black Midi fan, and so I was pretty broken up, get it, by... Alright, so more camera issues. My camera ran out of memory space while I was in the middle of a sentence. So it's been a few days, but I'm here to finish the rest of the video. So I was talking about The New Sound by Jordy Griep. Yeah, all in all, what I was just trying to say is that it was a really good album, and you know, I'm really excited to see what Jordy Griep has in the future. You know, I was already a fan of his music in Black Midi, and I'm certainly a fan of what he's doing now as a solo artist. We don't have that many to go, so let's just go through them. We have The Enduring Spirit by Tomb Mold, another sort of proggy, sort of experimental death metal release. This one is another one that I really enjoyed. Definitely not at the same level conceptually or compositionally as Blood Incantation, but I do think that I heard the individual tracks from this album a little more than they did. I had them a little more in rotation. Definitely has a very unique and cool vibe that I really enjoyed. We also have Unspoiled by Croy, a Japanese band. I believe this is their debut album. I first came to know them from anime openings that they've made in the past few years that I really enjoyed. And I ended up checking out their album, and it was alright. It was pretty good. I mean, I think the songs that I already knew from anime were definitely the highlights, but there was some interesting stuff here and there, and it has a decent amount of variety. Then we also got the album Eviscerate by Idola. Idola is a post-hardcore band from Utah, I believe, and this is the first half of a double album, with the second one releasing earlier this year in 2025, so I'm not going to touch on it on this video. You're going to have to wait till next year for that one. This one was a pretty off-the-rails, pretty aggressive, intense, religiously themed post-hardcore trip. There were some songs in here that I really enjoyed. I do wish at certain points that there was a little bit more variety, but all in all, the energy and also the themes and how they're presented, I appreciated quite a bit. And finally, what was my favorite album that I heard last year? Well, that was actually the most recent album by experimental hip-hop artist JPEG Mafia, I Lay Down My Life For You. JPEG Mafia is someone that I've been a fan of for a while. I know that I probably look like a stereotypical JPEG Mafia fan. If you know, you know. But yeah, even though I've enjoyed a lot of his past work, I never got into like his full albums, like as full listens. I always had trouble with that, even though I always really fucked with the singles. This was the exception. I enjoyed this album from front to back. It was just straight bangers, straight heat, such a unique style, so much experimentation that, in my opinion, in this album felt a little more digestible than in some of his previous work. I know that he also released an extended edition later on, which I also listened to. Not really gonna touch on that. I haven't listened to that one as much. I'm mainly referring to the original version of the album here. And well, that's pretty much it for albums, and that's also it for part 1 of this huge roundup of shit that I watched last year. So let's move on to part 2. Okay, so like I said at the beginning of the video, part 2 is going to be dedicated exclusively to YouTube and anime, because those are two mediums that I consume a lot more of and that I sort of dedicate more energy, more thought into than the other stuff that I've covered. So like I said before, instead of covering everything briefly, kind of out of order, and then just highlighting my favorites, for these two mediums, I'm actually going to go over a proper top 10. And still, I'm not going to dwell too much on each individual thing. I don't want to make this video much longer than it probably already is going to be. So, yeah, let's just get right into it. Starting off with YouTube, some honorable mentions. I'm just gonna mention these super quick. I'm not really gonna talk about them. But for honorable mentions, we got I made a graph of Wikipedia. This is what I found by Agum. Anarchy Chess, Reddit's greatest shitpost by Harping Harp. What's Next After Superhero Movies by Patrick H. Willems. The Problem with Problematic Media, You Probably Aren't a Bad Person by exclamation point. And finally, You Are Made of Hourglasses That Fall from the Sky by Tom Lum. All these are super interesting. I'm really gonna talk about them. Now with the top 10 proper, at number 10 we have How Jake Paul Keeps Winning Fights by Super Eye Patch Wolf. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that Super Eye Patch Wolf is one of my favorite creators on YouTube out of all time. The topics he picks are super interesting, really has an knack for narration and sort of building drama and tension within his videos. There were definitely some other videos that came out last year that I watched last year from his that could have won, but I decided to go with this one because it's about a topic that I knew about. Being someone who is on the internet a lot, I know about Jake Paul and I know about that really famous moment of him having a box match with Mike Tyson and winning. But then I never stopped to think about, well, why does he keep doing this, and why is he actually winning, and what's the hidden meaning behind this? And Super Eye Patch Wolf, who is someone who actually knows a lot about martial arts and combat sports, which is something that I don't really know a lot about, breaks it down in a really interesting way and sort of paints a very unflattering picture of Jake Paul, which, you know, obviously don't know the guy personally, but he, from what I've seen of him, from his public persona, he doesn't seem to be a great guy, so, you know, there's a little bit of satisfaction there too. Moving on to number 9, we got Poker's Greatest Tournament Run by Lemon. Lemon is another guy I've been following for a really long time. It was really interesting many years ago to see him pivot from sort of like meme review style content and like shitposts onto these more like involved, thoroughly researched sort of like documentary style videos, which I enjoy a lot. And this one was just such like an interesting and fun story. I was covering about this random guy just like walking into like a poker tournament and winning and just completely upsetting the poker world. And obviously this is something that I had no idea had happened. Like, I don't know shit about poker. Like, I know how to play poker, that's about it, but this story was just so much fun. It's such a fun video, I really recommend it. It was also very momentous that it came out around the same time that Balatro was gaining popularity. So, yeah, that's another fun coincidence as well. Maybe it was timed like that on purpose, but I don't know. At number 8, we have Orientalism, Desert Level Music versus Actual Middle Eastern Music by Faria Faraji. This is a creator that I discovered last year from this video specifically. Faria Faraji is an Iranian ethnomusicologist, which is a realm of study that I know a little bit about, very little about, and I always thought it sounded pretty interesting as someone who is, like I said before, a musician. And so I was very happy to find out someone who is actually making content on YouTube in a format that I really enjoy, going over these topics. And I really appreciated that this video is about breaking a lot of stereotypes around, you know, music from the Middle East and what it sounds like and what we think it sounds like. It's not really what it sounds like at all. This is a very lengthy video for sure. It is a time commitment, but it was just so fascinating and just shed so much light on this issue. And it was especially revealing to me because I am sort of a fan of that Orientalist Hollywood type of style of music that he describes as being just completely not representative of what music from that part of the world actually sounds like. So it was definitely very enlightening to learn about it, learn the difference, and learn what's actually going on. At number 7, we got I Want the Culture Feeling by FD Signifier. FD is another creator that I've known for a few years now, and I've become a very big fan of his content. Again, he talks about stuff that I have an interest in but don't know a lot about, which is always fun and will always definitely make me enjoy a video more. And in this one, he goes over the entire history of the legendary world-shaking beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. This was really cathartic to watch. Not only watch the beef as it was happening in real time, but also watching this documentary essentially about it after the dust had kind of settled. Especially as someone who has never been a fan of Drake and who's definitely seen just sort of how scummy Drake seems to be as a person, and someone who always has been a fan of Kendrick Lamar. I mean, he was one of the first hip-hop artists that I really started to listen to. So yeah, this is a super detailed, super thorough, just sort of breakdown analysis of the whole history, not only between these two titanic figures in the world of music, but also just the entire history leading up to that point, what sort of set them up as these two clashing figures. Just incredible documentary. FD is a great speaker. This is easily the longest video in this top 10. Let me check. Yeah, this is definitely the longest video in this top 10, sitting at 3.5 hours almost. So definitely a time commitment, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And if you don't want to sit for 3.5 hours, just break it up into sections. It's pretty easy. Just break it up into sections. At number 6, we got Why It Was Almost Impossible to Make the Blue LED by Veritasium. Veritasium is a channel that I don't really follow like that, but I'll check out his videos every once in a while and be thoroughly entertained with what I see. He is a very science-focused channel, and I've always been someone who's fascinated by science. I love learning about it. And so when I got recommended this video about the history of blue LEDs, I was like, blue LEDs? I don't know shit about how LEDs work or why this would be important. So I checked it out, and once again I found a totally fascinating story of just this amazing sort of, I don't want to say discovery, but process that it took to get to where we are today. It explains how LEDs work. It talks about sort of atoms and electrons and stuff like that. It definitely gets into the weeds a little bit with that, and it can be a little hard to follow. But the payoff is great, especially when you're learning about the history of the man behind the creation of the blue LED, which basically gave us a lot of our modern technology. Like, I mean, the screens on our TVs and phones and computers would not be the same without the blue LED. So this was another one of those things that you never think about, and then when you learn about it, it's like, this changed the world. At number 5, we got Why is Adult Animation So Far Behind by Lixtorius, another very documentary style video. Lixtorius is someone that I've been watching a little bit of over the past year, and I've definitely been getting really into his content. I think he is, again, a really good speaker, and he talks about really interesting topics. And this is one that I've definitely thought about before, but he goes way in depth into this video about why is animation in Japan so different from animation in the West, in the US specifically. And this is something I think about as someone who is a big fan of animation in general, but also very much a fan of anime specifically. And it just sort of goes into the history of animation in both countries and what led them to sort of be the way they are today, as well as just going over positives and negatives of the realities of the industry in both of these countries. So yeah, this was definitely great to watch. I always like content that sort of like praises anime a little bit, which this video definitely does, but it also talks about its downsides, which I think it's important to talk about, especially sort of the abuse of the people that actually work in this industry and the exploitation of their labor, basically, which is something he talks about. So yeah, this is a great video that goes over that. Definitely another long one, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 4, we have something a little different. We actually have an animation, and like I said before, I'm a fan of animation, but I know that there's a huge scene of independent animation going on YouTube, which has been growing strong for a long time, and this is something that I'm not really that tapped into, to be completely honest. I'm definitely more exposed to more mainstream forms of animation, like I said, stuff on Netflix, anime, etc. But this is one that I learned about and I checked it out, and is Punch Punch Forever by Speedoru. Speedoru is an artist that I know of. I mainly know of him from his other more salacious content, let's say. But I think I was aware that he also did, you know, non-18 plus stuff. And I checked out the first episode of Punch Punch Forever, followed by the second one, which came out last year. And I was just thoroughly charmed. I loved every single second of this. Just, it's really fun, super energetic, super stylistic, sort of parody a little bit of like old school like shonen action type anime. Definitely reminded me a lot of Yu Yu Hakusho. A lot of heart, a lot of fun put into this slow animation. Like I said, it's just 2 episodes so far, and you know, this being an independent animation, it's probably gonna take a while for the next one to come out, but this is definitely something that I have in my purview now. This was just super fun. Number 3, we got Jujutsu Kaisen vs. Evangelion Spiral Storytelling by We Watch Anime, which is just another channel run by Trixie the Golden Witch, who I talked about in my album section. She's still in the YouTube game, definitely not as intensely as she was in the past, but she's still in there, and she's still one of the best at it. I love her writing style, I love her voice, and I love her choice of topics, and this is definitely the case here. I saw a lot of videos last year talking more in depth about Jujutsu Kaisen specifically, and sort of the meaning behind it and what it's trying to say, which is one of the things that I really appreciate about it as a series that I think, yes, it's like super hyper popular, it's one of the most popular anime right now, but I also think that people just kind of miss the forest for the trees, if you know what I mean. Like, people talk so much about the hype and the action of it that I feel like people sometimes miss out on some of the deeper meanings that it has, which is something that I'm invested in. And this is a video that explores that in a very interesting way, in a very interesting and unique way, comparing it with Evangelion as well. So yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting aspect or approach to compare these 2 series, and a very unique video as well. And number 2, we got another JJK video, Jujutsu Kaisen's World is Built on Evil by Petrol and Coffee. Petrol and Coffee, another channel I watched for the first time last year, through this video specifically, and I mean, after this and another video that I watched, which I didn't mention, I subscribed to him. This is another newer anime-focused video essayist type creator who I have been really enjoying, really looking forward to what else he does, because this is like one of his first videos ever, one of like, this is his first like 4 or 5 videos. So yeah, very talented. And like I said before, this is just talking about a very interesting aspect of JJK as a series, something that I think people, for as much as how popular it is, maybe don't think about as much, and which makes the series a lot more interesting to think about. Finally, my number 1 favorite video that I watched last year is Nothing Ever Stops Existing by Jacob Geller. Jacob Geller, another just absolute titan of the YouTube video essay world in my eyes, one of my absolute favorites in this whole sphere. And he'll come out with several bangers a year. I don't think all the videos that he makes are like quite on the same level, but every year he'll have at least like 1 or 2 or 3 videos which are just absolute bangers of video essays with super interesting topics, amazing writing, super unique perspectives, and this is not an exception. Definitely one of the most interesting and evocative videos that I watched last year, and just the topic of it is just such an interesting mix of sort of like existential dread and optimism is how I would describe it. Super unique stuff. Jacob Geller, just at the top of the game. And for the final section, we're talking about my favorite anime that came out in 2024 that I watched. Again, it's a separate category like YouTube videos, because usually I watch a lot more anime than I do other forms of media. Last year was kind of an exception though. At the time of the making of this video, I've only completed 17 shows that came out last year, which may sound like a lot, but compared to other categories like film or albums, for example, it's kind of on par. Maybe even a little less, to be honest. Anyway, I could totally just like talk about everything that I've watched so far, but I still want to keep anime as a separate category because last year, 2024, was kind of an exception for me. So So yeah, anyway, without further ado, let's just get right into some honorable mentions. Just gonna mention them real quick. We got That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Season 3. We got Buchigiri, Gushing Over Magical Girls, Season 2 of Mashal, and Train to the End of the World. Very underrated show. And now for the top 10 proper, at number 10 we have Kaiju number 8. Kaiju number 8, all in all was like a pretty run-of-the-mill shonen, but it's just one of those shows that just executes on the fundamentals so well that it doesn't matter that it's a little generic, to be honest. It's a really fun show, really likable characters. I like the decision to make the protagonist like an actual adult instead of a teenager. Like, this guy's just like a guy in his 30s, and I also like how that actually plays into the narrative of the show as well. But yeah, other than that, just expect great fight scenes, lots of hype. Yeah, just some good shonen stuff. At number 9, we have Making Too Many Losing Heroines. This is a show that kind of came out of nowhere for me. At first, it just kind of seemed like another generic, like sort of rom-com, school-type comedy. But I was intrigued by it because of just how nice the art and animation for this show is. Like, this show looks beautiful, like way prettier than it has any right to be. And as I kept watching, I actually really got endeared to the characters. I thought the show has a great sense of humor. So yeah, this is a show that may seem a little generic at first, but if you give it a shot, it's a lot of fun. Number 8, we have The Elusive Samurai. This is based on a manga by the author of Assassination Classroom, series which was pretty popular a few years ago. And this one, the thing that stands out to me the most about this show is just how gorgeous the animation is. Like, god damn! Like, we got some amazing animation last year, including in most of the shows that I have yet to talk about. But even so, like, I was just amazed at just how good the show looked. As for the actual story, it's a period piece. It's set in historical Japan, which, like I've said before, is a setting that always appeals to me. I always find interesting. Outside of the setting and some fun samurai shenanigans, this is just such a gorgeously animated and fun show. I definitely want to see more of it. At number 7, we have The Apothecary Diaries. This is another one that I was excited about, but I actually ended up being pleasantly surprised by how great just the character writing is in this. I really think it's the strongest suit. The protagonist, Mao Mao, is great protagonist, super fun, and all the relationships she has to everyone she meets in the palace and the cast of characters as it grows are really great to watch as well. It's also doubles as kind of a mystery, which the mysteries, I mean, some of them are like okay, but others can be really fun. And I think the more fun part about it is how each new mystery, like, it almost has like a case of the week kind of format, but how each mystery just sort of keeps building up into like these greater conspiracies in the palace in this sort of like fictional sort of Chinese historical setting. The second season is currently airing at the time of the making of this video, and it's also extremely enjoyable, but yeah, as for the first season, definitely recommend. At number 6, we got Undead Unluck, an anime that I think kind of went under the radar last year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I knew ahead of time a little bit about this series. I knew that it had a really interesting power system, and well, you know, as a shonen nerd, that's always something gonna perk me up a little bit, you know. But outside of that, I was just surprised by how crazy and wacky the world building is in this. Like, they make some choices early on, and like you sit to think about it, like, and it's like, wow, that was a wild choice to make, and it just keeps building up. Like, this series has some of the most interesting, like, sort of world building and just overall plot that I've seen in a minute. I'm definitely kind of sad that it kind of went under the radar, and we don't really have news of a second season yet. But I'm definitely a fan of this series now. I bought the first volume of the manga a little bit ago, and I'm definitely going to keep reading because I heard that it gets insane. Number 5, it's Bleach, 1000 Year Blood War, the third part, The Confrontation. I mean, I'm sure I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but I'm a Bleach fanboy. I love Bleach. It was one of the first long anime series I watched. Still love it to this day. And I'm just so happy with how this new adaptation just does justice to the source material. It looks absolutely gorgeous. They even added a lot of material that wasn't in the original story that's actually made this a little bit better than the source material. There were a lot of complaints, I remember, when the manga version of this arc was coming out that people were having, and this adaptation has fixed a lot of those. Not much different with this one than the previous parts of Thousand Year Blow, where it's just still awesome looking, great Bleach anime. And number 4, we got Monogatari series Often Monster season. The Monogatari series I haven't talked about before because the anime was gone for a while. Last thing we saw about it came out in like 2018, and it wasn't until 2024 that we actually got a new anime, which I was super excited about, obviously. I love the Monogatari series, just super unique, super influential as well. I feel like there's a lot of series that kind of copy its formula a little bit, or its style, but there's nothing quite like it with the gorgeous visuals and vibes and atmosphere from Shaft Studio. And yeah, this season was definitely a little more like sort of just miscellaneous stories. Like it felt like it was just starting to build up like a new story arc, because the installment before this just wrapped up everything that had been building up to it. But it was very entertaining to watch. We got a whole bunch of new characters, which was really nice to see as well after a long time of getting used to just the original cast. And we also get to see some more backstory for some of our established characters, which was super fascinating as well. But yeah, Monogatari is back, baby. I hope we get another season soon. Number 3. We got one of the biggest hits of the year, Delicious in Dungeon Meshi. Everybody loved this show, and for good reason. This show was great. Just awesome, straightforward fantasy fun. You get the very like sort of anime-y trope of like, oh, we're going into a dungeon. It's very like sort of RPG, D&D inspired, but then it's also got the twist that it's about cooking in the dungeon as well. And you know, for the first few episodes that's pretty fun, but then you get to like halfway through the season and it just becomes something else entirely, and the story becomes so exciting. It becomes so cool. And yeah, anyway, the stakes between all the different parties and the politics of dungeon raiding. I also really like how the different fantasy concepts are incorporated into a sort of semi-realistic manner. And what I mean by this is that you have concepts like, for example, in this world, if you die in the dungeon, you don't really die. You can be revived. And I like how that concept is exploited in a way that feels like, okay, if this happened in real life, it will probably happen this way. I love it when series do that. If your series does something like that with fantasy concepts, it garners favor with me. At number 2, we got another stunning, amazing entry, Dan Da Dan. This was an anime that's been hyped up for so long. The manga, people just go crazy for it. I myself started reading it before the anime came out, and this adaptation just completely blew it out the water. Like, Science Hour went insanely hard with this one. The fight scenes, the color design, just everything is like firing on all cylinders. Like this is one of those shows that's like truly a spectacle to behold. Some of the coolest sequences and fight scenes that I saw last year came from this show. And also it's got an amazing, wacky sense of humor. Like, this series feels so random, like at all times, but also just works together so well. Also because of the characters and the strong romantic undertones between the two protagonists, which I appreciate that they're leaning more into that, because in shonen, it's very common to see sort of romantic undertones, but they never really explore them like this. But that is going there, and I really appreciate that. Finally, number 1, my favorite anime that I saw last year was Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Holy shit, the show was a masterpiece. Like, I know millions of people have already said this, like, Frieren became the number 1 highest rated anime on the website MyAnimeList, dethroning Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which had been at the top for years. And in my opinion, it kind of deserves the hype. Like, Frieren has become one of my new all-time favorites. I've already rewatched it multiple times, and it's just so good. And it's such a profoundly, emotionally affecting story, which, I mean, obviously it's fantasy, but it's more than fantasy, if you get what I'm saying. Like, it's really about just sort of, it's about kindness, appreciating the people closest to you and just making the best of your time. Time is a huge topic in the series as well. And like I said, I have a lot of thoughts about this show, and I don't just want to try to spew them all out in this unorganized fashion, because if you couldn't tell, this video is not scripted. It's just me rambling off the dome, as you would say. But yeah, I definitely have videos planned in the future where I go more in depth into this, in like with an actual script where I can organize my thoughts and just really just put that out there. But yeah, this is a series that just profoundly emotionally affected me. I love it, sincerely appreciate it. I would definitely say it's become one of my new all-time favorites, and 100% one of the best anime we've gotten this decade so far. And that's it. That's everything. That's pretty much everything that I watched / read / whatever in the year 2024. This video is probably gonna be pretty long, but it was pretty fun to make, and I would like to do this every year if possible. We'll see how I feel about it next year. I'll check back in with you guys. But I just love talking about stuff that I watch, stuff that I like. Like I said, for some of these things, I definitely want to make more structured, scripted videos so I can get more coherent thoughts out, but it's also fun to just ramble as well. But anyway, this has been it for me. What do you think? Do I have good taste? Do I have shit taste? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, share it, all that stuff. Got it on my socials, linked in the description. But yeah, that's it for me. I have more videos planned to be coming out later in the year, so hopefully I do make that happen. But in the meantime, have a good one.